So welcome everybody, and a big thank you to AMA and Windbound for having me. I always have to laugh because, maybe I do have a lot of connections, but I really don't know everybody on LinkedIn or in person. But always happy to connect with new people. So looking forward to chatting with everybody afterwards, or if you have questions, feel free to contact me afterwards. Love chatting with people online or having coffee when possible in person. So today I'll be talking about Madison Reading Project, a little bit about what it is that we do and why, and then also some of the marketing that we have done that's been really helpful for us, starting from just a teeny tiny idea to what we've become today. So this is me, and it's one of my favorite quotes, which I got on a fortune cookie right when I was starting, and taped to my laptop. And every time when I really had some doubts about what was happening or not happening or what I could or couldn't do, it really just kept me motivated to keep going. And I still feel like that's true to this day, that when you have a group of people who are committed to working together, you don't need to have thousands of people, whether that's followers or likes or donors. You just need a small group of people to get started and to keep you going through everything. Oh, sorry about that. So the reason that I started Madison Reading Project is I really was trying to help my son who was having some reading problem in early elementary school. And he just didn't like the books that were at school. And so he was getting a little bit behind. And so I sort of started to dig in to how to help him. And that got me kind of, I guess, a little something happened where it clicked, where I just started thinking about, well, what about the kids that don't have extra help or don't have parents who can't research on how to help them? What about the kids who get left behind, parents who aren't able to go to the library to go for extra programming or to purchase extra books, or all of the above? And it really got me thinking. So I started to do some research and was pretty astounded by the literacy rates in Wisconsin and in Dane County, where we're based. And seeing the difference in early childhood literacy and all through high school was not just 5-10 points in differences, but sometimes 20 to 40% or points, which is staggering amount of difference between Black and brown children, or you look at different income levels where they live in Madison. And it was sort of enough, I guess, for me. It made such a difference, and to me, that I felt like I wanted to do something, but wasn't really sure how to get started. And started to look at even more research into the difference it makes to have books in your own home. Often we think about, we might be surrounded by books in our own home or go to the library a lot. And the more books that you have, basically the easiest thing to say is the higher literacy rate is, the more opportunity there is to pick up a magazine or a book, whether it's at your reading level or not. And that really got me thinking more about what I could do to possibly help the situation, and decided I wanted to try and figure out a way to get started. So our pilot program, when I finally found the right partner, we started at an after-school program at Salvation Army on Darbo Road, which is a very low-income neighborhood, kind of tucked away. You can drive by, you don't really notice it. And we partnered with their after-school program to provide some high-quality books, and we worked with the teachers to come up with our pilot program to assist them and the kids. And probably to no surprise, the kids were super excited about the new books and the new things they were doing around reading. And so the educators and the group asked if we could again repeat it. It was really successful, but it also made me realize just sort of how much need was out there and what was happening or what was not happening. And the kids just really got such joy out of selecting books for themselves instead of being given books, that were just, nobody else wanted them, or they'd been at the center for 10, 20 years. They weren't relevant anymore. And they were really just getting into the books, and so that was something we just kept working around and just seeing what worked and what didn't work for them. And this is us in the very early days. This was out after about a year of working at Salvation Army. We went through a variety of iterations of what worked or didn't work, and then also trying to figure out how to scale up. This was pretty labor intensive in some ways. We matched every student with a mentor, which was really, really great. The kids and I think the adults got so much joy out of it and learned a lot on all sides. But it was a lot of obviously working to coordinate all of the volunteers and kids and make sure everybody was there when they needed to be there. And so we also just tried to find an additional way that we could help kids, thousands of kids, and not just 30. But finding this photo was definitely took me back a couple of years to what it's all about. Which is obviously it's always all about the kids. So this was a fun one to find. And so some of the things we realized along the way was obviously that new books were really exciting, but books also that the children could identify with. And so finding books that kids were familiar with, whether it's different themes, whether it's different movies, was it graphic novels or things that were exciting, were things that kids just wanted to pick up immediately and get reading or reread or share with their friends or trade. And that's what it was all about, is trying to encourage the joy of reading and the love of books. And for some, that might be something they already like to do. And for others, there was definitely kids who were already off put by what they thought books should be. So it's always good to encourage kids, especially those who don't want to read, to help them find something they wanted to do. So if you fast forward today, this is our bookmobile. We call it the Little Red Reading Bus, and it's retrofitted inside with shelving. And you'll see it along the way and sort of how we came all the way to purchasing our own bookmobile. So from all of the interest and work we've put in, we've grown every year, and obviously marketing has been a huge help in order to let people know anything from how to volunteer, how to donate books, how to donate financially. Obviously, how do they be part of our Big Red Reading Bus? Just so many different things in the past 5 years that we've been able to grow from our one partner to now having over 100 different partners. We work with schools, community centers, food pantries, anywhere from like a free dental clinic, kind of you name it. We try and partner with a wide variety of groups so that we're really trying to address and meet the needs of a variety of people, from social workers, teachers, those working in the court system. If there's kids coming to court with their parents, that there's books there for them to engage in, kind of you name it. We like to really do that, and also try and provide a wide variety of books that kids will enjoy. There's the inside of the bus, and get a feel for what happens there. And this year, obviously with the pandemic, last year when we launched our Big Red Reading Bus, our bus was out constantly, 3 or 4 stops a day. Obviously a lot of interacting in public, which we weren't able to do this year, barely at all. And so this year we've changed our method of going out in public and taking the bus out to public events and out to apartment buildings and program sites, to now using the bus to deliver books, usually in bulk, that we've curated specifically for those groups or those teachers, so that they can just literally get the books they need immediately. versus us going back and forth on what exactly they need or getting books that they don't need. In return, also normally we're taking in hundreds and thousands of book donations, which those have been down. We didn't take in any donations for over 3 months when we were all trying to figure out this COVID situation. So we ended up having to do quite a lot of marketing and figuring out as far as how do we still provide books. We weren't even sure if we could do that. We ended up being able to fundraise and purchase a lot more books. So we've purchased probably even at this point around 30,000 books, which normally we had planned for around 15 for the whole year. So usually it's a blend of donated and purchased books. And that was something we just had to kind of scrap our marketing plan for what we were going to do in our programming and just come up with a new way to do things. And then the other thing that we were already focused on is always when we do purchase books or curate books is always to help provide diverse books. But now there's an even greater ask for pretty much every teacher or parent is asking us for books. And that was, again, something we had to purchase more and more of because those aren't usually the books that are donated to us. So again, had to really put on our marketing hats as far as trying to also let people know how to donate, whether it was books or funds, how to do that safely. And then also, you know, the types of books we were really looking for and being very specific in our asks. There's some of our kids with their book bags. It's a shout out to Pickle in a Pouch. They helped donate some bags for us so that we could get bags of books out to kids, not just 1 or 2 at a time. So overall, in our existence for the past 6 years, our numbers have scaled up dramatically. Initially, we worked, as I mentioned, we were working with 30 kids and we thought 200 books was awesome. And then we've slowly kept increasing the numbers and what we thought were crazy numbers. So our initial large push was 5,000 books, and then we have increased that from 5,000 to 10 to 20. And our goal this year is to provide 60,000 books, which I really wasn't sure in February or March if that was going to be feasible at all. But we're now getting close to the 50,000 mark for the year, which always just blows my mind, just the amount of work that's gone into obviously making that happen. The ask is overwhelming at this point, obviously with kids being stuck home over the summer, not having anything to do or very little to do. Parents are obviously really anxious about being outside or what kids can or cannot do, and anything new is definitely appreciated. And now the same with teachers. Some teachers are still in person or virtual, and how do we keep things exciting? How do they read stories online? We've had a lot of conversations with teachers the past couple of months as they try to prepare for what they do or don't know will be this school year. Some more happy kids with their books. Here's one of the teachers. We've started a new program just specifically for educators to provide up to 50 books at one time for their classrooms to help diversify their classrooms. This is a teacher in Verona, and she's going to move all those bags out to all the teachers. So here's some of the things I definitely wanted to relay to you. Obviously, is that if children have their own books at home, in addition to obviously going to a library, but the more that they can build those home libraries, there's more opportunities for family literacy. The same for teachers or community centers having new and relevant books at their centers for them to use and for kids to read is extremely important. And again, just to diversify and find books and really curate them for the teachers and the kids is really important. So we're always very grateful for the feedback that we get from family members or kids themselves or their teachers, just to make sure that what we're actually doing is right, and obviously helps us relay that message out to our volunteers and donors, and to the public, so they know that what we're trying to do is working. Some of the other things we've just been relaying this year, obviously, is that we can't keep up with the demand. That's been something we just weren't sure what was going to happen this year. And we're getting more and more requests, not just within Madison or our county, but really southern Wisconsin, anywhere from Racine and Milwaukee all the way over to Platteville, and even outside of Wisconsin, even teachers who are willing to drive an hour, even 2 hours to come and get books, is really interesting, and also kind of gives you an idea of what's possibly happening, you know, behind the screens, so to speak. And this is one of the pictures during the summer I love. We weren't sort of really stopping at any public sites, but we were doing some home deliveries and deliveries to community centers. But when kids do stop us, we do have extra books so that we can give them some books. So these were some happy customers who happened upon our bus this summer. It's the last summer pick. So this is sort of going more into the marketing part. So I definitely, if there are any questions about Madison Reading Project, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, I can continue on with the marketing portion. So definitely when I started the organization, I wasn't really thinking about marketing. I was thinking about the problem, what we could do, what we couldn't do. But as I got started, obviously people started asking me about what's the name of your pilot program? Wasn't a nonprofit yet. How do I find information? Are you on social media? Or I needed to have some volunteers, and you slowly start to put that all together. And during the course of about a couple of months, just trying to come up with a name or in a way to get information out. And so some of these seem simple, but they're really important, and just some of the basics for nonprofits, or if you're a startup even, it's very similar, just trying to define some of these things so that everybody, whether it's yourself or if there's a team, that you all know just some of those basic parts and pieces of your mission or vision. Even if it's very basic, trying to figure out what your brand is, what it stands for, what it looks like. A logo is extremely helpful. And then obviously, even again, if it's very basic, a website to send people to for information, and some kind of social media. Again, even if you just have social media and no website, those were some of the really small things that I was able to do mostly myself, just trying to get started so people could find me, whether that shows your legitimacy or how to volunteer or any other type of information, how to donate, something physical, something monetary. That was really important to me. I do have a marketing background, but that was really important to try and figure those parts and pieces out, and just find something that could also help us stand out. There wasn't really any other group that was doing something exactly what we were doing, just trying to make sure and be very specific in how we were doing that so people understood what we were doing. Some of the other things, when you have a very low budget or no budget, is what can you do yourself? The photography, obviously, just using a cell phone. I've always said it doesn't need to be fancy or just being, using your own photography as much as possible. I think people, even now, whether it was COVID or not, just people often see a variety of stock imagery, and I often looked for stock imagery. I could never find anything that quite fit what we were looking for. So just had to either rely on myself for photographs, or from volunteers, or from those who are interacting with what we were doing. The social media portion has been extremely important to our organization, just with such a low marketing budget. That's been a huge way that I've been able to grow not our partners, because they've been able to see what we're doing with similar organizations, but trying to find specific volunteers who have a very specific skill set, for instance, or looking for book donations. So yes, I am online a lot, as Greg mentioned, on LinkedIn, but it was really interesting as I got started. Initially it may have been people I know and my friends who were helping out and coming to volunteer, but as word got out and there were more and more people I didn't know coming to volunteer or who were dropping off books, I always asked, how did you hear about us? And a lot of them were coming from social media. And I always found that really interesting, that they came across an image that really resonated with them, and they showed up on a Saturday to come volunteer, and they had no idea who I was. So that was really interesting, how that all happened, or people saying, oh, I saw someone else post that they donated all of their books to you, so I thought I could do something similar myself. So I definitely think for us, social media was a huge win, and still is at this point, that it can be overwhelming, and I'll go through some other social media slides as well, but that's definitely been, for our demographic, a definite win. Having a website, even if it's basic, just again to relay information and making sure it's something that you can update yourself, instead of having to wait on someone else to be able to update it for you. And then demographic of supporters, again, I think is interesting, because if you really know, at least have an understanding of who your supporters are, whether those are people who can volunteer or the people who might be able to donate financially. Those are all the different things you kind of want to keep in mind. Or if you are going to go into different types of paid promotions online, it's always good to have an idea of where they might be or what platform they might be on. And then also contact information. That's been something, as we ourselves, going from a really small nonprofit, we had a lot of followers or email addresses, for example, through newsletters, but we didn't have a lot of mailing information. So that's something now, as we sort of go through the next process with marketing, where we've even thought about doing some mailed pieces, but we didn't have a lot of actual addresses because we interact so much online. So those are all the different things just to keep in mind as you think about what you can have or what you can use without too much funding. Again, sort of trying to get creative with what you have. We often asked our donors and those who are helping out to take photos themselves, and those are always great to share out because people like to share them, what you've just posted. But people loved showing pictures of themselves either dropping off the books or collecting books. This particular gentleman also runs a gym, so he loved posing. He posed with all kinds of books for us and showed us how strong he was, but it definitely was something to get other people excited about donating or coming and volunteering. And so again, it's just a nice way that's not expensive to get people to share out your information or to keep it all going. Here's a couple of different things we have used along the way as far as helping us with our marketing. There are some groups out there in the Madison area. Add to Madison and Design Like Mad we've participated in, which is a free marketing, either sort of like a weekend or things like that, where they match you up with professionals. I've always said too, sometimes just whether you know someone at a marketing or advertising firm, but asking for help, really trying to figure out if any of your volunteers or board members can assist you, whether it's with design or website, because you just don't know unless you ask. And then finally, hire someone. Myself, I was doing sort of most of all of our marketing and social media, and it came to the point where I just couldn't manage it all, or we were having events. So finally, I did hire someone to help me consistently with the marketing and social media aspect, and having it purposefully set out and not just, oh yeah, I need to do this too, because if you're in a nonprofit, you probably know you wear many hats. So that was really helpful, and along the way we've had some really nice help and design work to help us really help us achieve sort of our brand. So you can see on the slide, this was with Design Like Mad. So they helped us with our new bus promotions, and that really tied in well with our logo. And then we also had an artist who helped me create these whole series of children who are obviously all reading books, and those kids are not only on the promotions, but they're also on the outside of the bus. So it was just a really nice teamwork to put that all together, and now to have that all on our bus, and kids and families love it. Some of the low-cost events we've done, these were really because of necessity. And so we just had to get creative with what we could do. There was definitely things we could do which were specifically for those we were helping, which were kids. So some of those were literacy parties that were pretty low cost but high impact. We also tried to really think about things that we thought our donors and supporters would enjoy doing. And so we came up with a game called Read Like Mad, which tied in nicely, obviously, with our brand. And it was a reading game that had quizzes, prizes. It was all about reading books. And that really had quite a long life cycle. We did it for several years, and people really still got a kick out of it. When we decided to retire it, we had a couple of people definitely who were sad to see it go, but it had a long life of people, who were into books, who were into what we were doing, and it just tied in really nicely. So just trying to get creative with what you're doing and seeing if there's some way to help promote that around reading. Whiskey and Words, again, a lot of our events obviously have things around reading. That was always an in-person event with poets and spoken word artists, and I had whiskey. And we were not able to do that in person this year. And sort of this tied in perfectly with the timing of this event. It is coming up in October. So this year we tried to figure out a way to do an online event. We were still trying to figure out, with obviously people doing Zoom events and things like that. So we actually were able to partner with the local radio station. And they were excited to try and do something new as well. So they're doing our event live on their radio and on their Facebook page, a live event. So that's coming up on October 8th. And so that'll be, I think, a first for us and for the radio station. They were actually thrilled to have us kind of ask the question to them. And so I'm always a proponent of sometimes just asking, because you don't know unless you say no. Or if they say no. Sorry, my kid just came in. Please shut the door. All right. So that's something I guess, like I mentioned, sorry, just a proponent of asking, because you don't know what will happen. So in this situation with Whiskey and Words, we were just trying to think outside the box, and now we're thrilled that our event will be on the radio. So there won't be any true tickets per se, but we're fundraising in different ways to be able to do that. And then lastly, we had an event called Thankful, that we were able to gather as many of our volunteers and clients. And again, just sort of, it was always around Thanksgiving. And it was just a really nice way to tie up the end of the year. But it was a really nice event to be able to bring a variety of people together, from the people you're working with to the people who are donating and volunteering. And I guess those are all different ways that we've been able to keep our event costs pretty low without going into a large gala or anything else like that. Some of the other ways we've definitely been able to grow our audience was newsletters. As much as social media is really important, we also knew that not all of our donors and volunteers and partners who are on social media. And that's just a nice way to get all of the information out for the month or whatever your set schedule is. We've found by doing that, we definitely can relay a variety of information, whether that's also then getting the analytics afterwards on who's opening what, who's sharing, who's clicking on the links, who's not clicking on the links. And it's been a really great way for us to get a variety of referrals because some people are just not on social media. And that's been really interesting way for us to grow our marketing as well, just with some of the things that have occurred through newsletters. As much as social media is really great, just being able to get more information out has been extremely important. So PR is always on our list as well. Early on, we did create a press list with contacts and who may or may not be interested in stories that are relevant to what we're doing. We've always sort of tried to figure out a variety of ways to do our press releases, to build those relationships with journalists and with media sources. And so we've had some pretty good success with newspapers and TV, and now even sort of adding in more of the blogs or radio interviews. I feel like there's such a variety of different sources out there and ways to get your information. And I'm always amazed by some of the referrals that have happened through that, not necessarily immediately, but people coming to us with the newspaper article in their hands saying, I read this in the newspaper, I've had it on my desk for 2 weeks, or I've had it on my desk for 6 months and I'm contacting you now. But that's been really helpful for us, especially again, as a low cost way and just a really high impact when you are able to potentially layer some of those different PR methods. I feel like, you know, people have said, oh, I saw you on TV and then we saw you on a newspaper the following month. So that's been extremely helpful as just sort of brand awareness and that repetition when you're able to do that. And this portion gets a little bit more into how we do our social media. So over on the far left is Katrina. She's holding up a book, and she's my right-hand woman. And so she's been really clever, I feel like, on the way that she's been able to help us put our social media together. Before it was myself, and it was more whenever I had time or when I had a photo, I was sharing it, which sometimes worked or didn't work depending on my timing of when I was free. And so she's really sort of set up a really nice way to do that, utilizing our staff, our volunteers, coming up with themes, and has done a really great job in engaging our partners, engaging companies, and donors and volunteers. So people really, it's been a really great way for us to get out our word about what we're trying to do and why. So some of the things around planning of content, whether it's ways to engage volunteers and sharing them, showing photos of them volunteering. Sometimes some of our content has a specific rhythm of a lot of questions that we get. So taking all those questions and making regular social media posts, you know, like how do you sign up for a newsletter? How do you donate books? All the questions that we constantly were getting, we just figured those are great ways to share on social media so that people would see all of those how-tos. Obviously, our events we want to plan out and slowly lead out so people are excited for that. And then also obviously some of the other social media around what's happening. So first day of fall, but just some of those other parts and pieces to continually engage on all those different platforms. Some of the things or themes that we have obviously relay around what we do, which is books. And so we have a variety of repetitive posts, like I mentioned. So how do you how do you do a book drive? We also have virtual book drives now because so many people are not in person. So we have a variety of different quotes or thank yous that go out to donors and volunteers. Books we love is a really nice way for us to promote the books that we would really love to have and that we're giving, that kids love or educators love. And we've had some really good success around a lot of those posts where people have seen them or maybe repetitively have seen them and then mentioned back to us, I saw that post about the books that you love or how to do a book drive. And that's always great when you get that information back when someone has followed through with all of those steps. And then they say, oh, I saw it online. So that's always great when someone has followed through from seeing it on social media to clicking to going to the website, to filling out the form or to making a donation. That's always a win for us, obviously for the whole team. Some of the design tools that Katrina and I use, some of them depending again on your budget and who's helping. There's a variety of free options out there. We do use quite a bit in Canva, so we're able to relay back and forth on what we're doing. Just depends on who you have available and who's helping out. On Canva, it's really nice if you are familiar with that. They help you create a whole brand kit. So it's pretty easy to create a variety of different posts. It gives you, saves all of your colors and logos so that you can create a whole variety of different images and different sizes. Sort of makes it as easy as possible for you depending on who you have doing that. So that's definitely a really nice tool to use. Some of the different things with scheduling, Katrina is sort of our schedule maven. She's the organized one. So she uses a whole variety of different scheduling platforms depending on what you like. Some of you may have used a variety of these and have your favorites, but that's definitely sort of how she schedules most of her posts, and that's definitely something to keep in mind too. With as much as you can schedule, there's always going to be things that come up that are not scheduled, and so trying to stay as flexible though as possible. If someone sends you something that's happening at an event, or someone sends you something that's happening now and needs you to post something, or as soon as possible, you really kind of need to try and stay as flexible as possible and either decide, is that something you can add in to what you're already doing, or does it need to wait to the next day or put in a newsletter? But we do try and be responsive. It's always nice when people are sending you photos and videos of things from, whether it's your event or just things happening out in the community. Planning or scheduling is definitely a lifesaver. And here she, yeah, being flexible. And so definitely for that, I think between, knowing the schedule and having all of our staff be aware of what we're doing with social media so that when they see things that are relevant, that they can send them all. Everybody sends all of our images over to Katrina to schedule, and making sure that if there's a testimonial or a quote that we know that we need to have is there an allowance or an approval to make sure that we can use that quote or use that photo? But that's definitely a really great way to try and get everybody involved in what you're doing. And that's, for us, has been a huge success. And then finally, here at the end, I wanted to thank everybody for listening. I'm definitely happy to take any of your questions. Find us on social media or on our website, and our event that'll be live on Facebook and on the radio is on October 8th. Thank you.
I've got a question for you, Rowan. First of all, I just think it's amazing that you've done all this. So kind of two questions. One, when you started this, like, you have a full-time job, you have a family. Did you envision that it would be this big and that it would take up this much time when you started it? I mean, everybody thinks about doing things, helping out, how can I help? What you've done is just absolutely mind blowing. I think anybody who's watching this, who's any marketer is seeing this is like, it's amazing what you've built. And, what did you do before this with all your time that you could build something like this, first of all? And then I
Oh,
guess
well, thank
my,
you.
then my second question would be for anybody who's watching your marketing efforts. Was there one thing that worked better than anything
Sure.
else?
Well, yeah. So as Greg mentioned, I've always had a full-time job in addition to running our nonprofit. Definitely at this point, we have a lot more, initially it was all volunteers and myself, and has slowly grown to have many more employees. So I can't do it by myself by any means, but it was something as I started, and it was just a small idea or a small nonprofit. For instance, being able for social media was huge, or just trying, some of those were just, small wins, such as finding a great logo, working with someone to make sure that was right. Social media was obviously my friend. If I'm working all day, that was something that I could post or schedule to post, and then went off to my job or being a parent. But obviously it has might not be able to be as responsive, which obviously you can run into when you're trying to start something small and slowly build your way up. But definitely, I think for me, this was definitely something I was very passionate about. And the more that I dug into what was happening or wasn't happening, it definitely was something that I thought I needed to continue on with. And there definitely were times where it was extremely difficult trying to figure out the time to put in. Like as I mentioned, I wasn't available during the day. So obviously emailing people back and forth, and being able to talk to people before work or after work. Volunteer sessions could only happen on a weekend because I was at my other job. But definitely, like I said, sort of taping that fortune cookie on my laptop, where I figured where there's a will, there's a way. And definitely have been extremely grateful for all the volunteers and people who recognize that the work was really important and needed to be done. So definitely, it can be a struggle when you're starting, whether it's a nonprofit or something else. It's a struggle trying to find the time. But for me, definitely some people were used to getting emails from me at 5 a.m. or at 11 at night when I finally had time to get back to people, or to answer their questions or send out a fundraising email asking for their help. But I try not to do that as much anymore. But sleep is recommended at some point.
Great. Hey, Rowan, thanks very much. I just had a quick question because you talked in the beginning about the 20 or 40 point gap in literacy. This is Steve Mintz, by the way. Have you been able to see how that first group of children that started 5-6 years ago are doing against their peers? Do you have?
Yeah, there has been a small movement of improvement, a small area of improvement, I would say. There's still Wisconsin as a whole is pretty shocking where we land nationally. In your head, you're thinking, oh, we've got to be somewhere maybe in the middle or towards the top. But we're actually like in the lower 10th of the US, which was mind blowing to me because you just assume, in probably the nicest way, that we don't do so badly. So there's definitely plenty of room for improvement. Some of the groups, when we do survey them at the beginning of the year and then again at the end of the school year, so specific schools that we're working with or even classrooms, it's a little tricky sometimes because we work with so many different kids and so many different ages. So we do take the survey and take a lot of testimonials from teachers and principals who tell us for sure, where their classroom was at the beginning of the school year, how much the kids want to read all the new books. We're doing a pilot program right now, even with the pandemic, but is to supply every classroom in 2 schools with new books throughout the school year. So at the end of the school year, each classroom will have 100 new school books, which is a little tricky right now, but I do still think if you could think of what the effect might be if you had 25 new school books in your classroom every quarter. Of course, the kids want to read the new books, they're excited, they're relevant. And so we're assuming, which we can't officially do, but is that obviously the kids will want to engage more with the new books, and therefore will be better readers and have more understanding of the topics because they've read the books.
Terrific. Thanks. Doing great work. I love hearing about it.
Rowan, I have a question about, are you guys at Madison Reading Project partnering up with some of the like publishers or like some of the larger manufacturers of actual books to like try and get you a lot of, and I apologize if you've said this already, a lot of like severely discounted or free books for this purpose?
Yeah, great question. That is something we have tried over the years. I do think initially when we got started, we really didn't have the funds to purchase initially really very few books and have slowly been able to grow that. This year, as I mentioned, we've purchased nearly 30,000 books. Most of those have been and by bulk or from a local source or online where we'll be able to purchase books by the pallet load, for instance, or buying 100 books at a time of one specific book. So that really helps when we're talking to different publishers and we're trying to do more of that. And that's something, again, sometimes it was just we didn't have the capacity to have one person go and find who's the best contact, which books do we actually really want. So we have had some success just this past year with talking to different authors and publishers. So we're definitely always trying to do that. Last year was really nice. We won an award from the National Children's Association of Book Writers, and they came out and threw us a party, which was awesome, but we got a lot of author contacts. So now there's just more authors who are aware of us, and that was really cool. And we still sort of to this day, sometimes we'll get to the office and there'll be a package or a box of books from an author who have found us either through that association or again through social media, and they'll say, you posted my book, saying it was book of the month or book of the week, and I wanted to send you 30 copies. So social media is our friend.
Yeah. So would you say that like you're kind of going more towards like in like Instagram, for example, like influencer on books also then to like feed into your your book? Absolutely.
I mean, it definitely it is a win. I mean, it's not every time, but it is exciting when international author likes or comments on it or has reshared our posts saying check out what this group is doing, or has sent us books directly. So
nice.
That's been really exciting and also a nice way for us to show just the variety of books.
So then are you tagging the author and the publisher of every single one of those?
Pretty much, yeah. Author, publisher, illustrator, like as many as we can. And it's been very, it's great for us to show people, especially people who want to purchase books to donate. Here's some of the books we love, but also great on the flip side, the people who are actually creating the books to know that they're being appreciated or that we'd love a donation from them.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you. And awesome work.
Thank you.
I got a couple questions I'll read off the list here that came in, Rowan. So are kids excited to get these books, especially with all the online tools that are out there?
Yeah, that's definitely something when we started early on, as we were doing our pilot program, was do kids really want books? Do they want ebooks? Do they want how do they want to read? And the overwhelming majority of kids, 5, 6 years ago to now is, yes, they do want books, but they want them to be cool books, or new books, or books that they actually want to read versus something that someone else has either, decided for them. They want to pick them out ourselves. And so part of our success was always to let kids pick out the books that they wanted. And so normally we would be either showing them a variety of options or things that were really curated to that age or that interest group. Even now in the pandemic, I feel like so few things are now actually tangible. Everything's online, and kids are like actually sort of, I feel like, desperate to get off of Zoom after being on it all day. Or parents are looking for something to engage their kids with after they've been online all day or gone, or whatever the situation. So we've gotten some really great feedback from people during the summer, or even now teachers who have some great books to read online to kids. And just, again, being able to show kids them reading and interacting with the book with expression instead of just looking at a text on a screen. So that's been really great to hear, not just 5 years ago, but just this year alone.
Yeah, when my wife used to teach 4th grade, she started letting the kids pick out the books they wanted to read, and her reading scores has skyrocketed. So good for you on that. There was one other question. Is this something that you think, because you're not busy enough, could grow beyond Madison?
Yeah, lots of conversations about that. I mean, definitely we've grown a lot, or, there's been people during the years who said we should call it a Wisconsin Reading Project, or all of the above. I do feel like for sure if we were able to grow this, statewide or to another larger city, we've definitely given some people some tips on sort of how we got started and how we've tried to make it as sustainable as possible for them to repeat in other states. But I do think, sort of going back always to my favorite quote, if you've got the right team behind you, whether it's all volunteer or not, that's really the way to do it. And it's for the long run, not something you can, organize quickly. And then you've got to have a little bit of planning involved. But if you've got the right team behind you, I don't see why it wouldn't be possible.
And just one more question, and then unless we don't have any others, we'll let you get back to your life and your incredibly busy life. When you started out, I mean, just running this whole thing, it seemed like you probably had to learn a lot on the fly, because I know you've always been in marketing. Suddenly you're talking about hiring people. You're probably talking about budgeting, running a nonprofit organization. I'm sure there's accounting and bookkeeping beyond the books. How was that? I mean, did you have to learn? Were you kind of making this up on the fly, or how did you get through all that?
Some of it, maybe. There's definitely things I knew I could do, or I figured out along the way how to do it, and other things that I knew I would be terrible at, such as book counting or accounting. Right. Bookkeeping. I know how to keep books and give them out, but I don't want to do bookkeeping. So that was something immediately I said I wanted to hire out. Me spending hours trying to figure out numbers on state or federal forms is not my strong suit. So that's something I do have an accountant who specifically only works with nonprofits. And along the way, as I was working at my job, there's definitely been a variety of different things that I've learned that often just sort of come into play. I was working at a startup for a while, and they had gone through a whole entrepreneurship class. And so a lot of things suddenly I realized I was already doing. Some of that startup work around what's a pilot program, what's a product, all of those things as far as like testing your theories, all came into play. And then obviously, as we've grown, you get into different situations like hiring people. What actually is HR? I'm not big enough to hire an HR director or a manager. So there's been a variety of things where you really need to figure out some of the resources, whether that's board members, or is it just a phone a friend, that you can make sure that you're hopefully doing things the right way so you don't get into trouble.
Right. So I don't see any other questions on the chat. If anybody else has one, I don't know if you saw this in the chat though, Rowan. Claire Frick she's the president of AMA University of Wisconsin-Madison, says our student org would love to work with you to partner for a donation and or community outreach event. And she's got her email in there. So
I have not looked at the messages yet.
yeah, so check that out. She's got her
Awesome.
email in there. Yeah, I think that's fantastic connection. So
You just never know.
yeah, I'm glad this worked out. Made that connection. You get a bunch of those UW students. That'd be great.
Absolutely. I always feel like you just never know. And if you don't ask, then you really don't know.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Okay, well, why don't you, I'll copy this and send it to you. And, oh, I see Tony Verovan has also told Claire to email him, so he'll get the information. But unless anybody can unmute if they have any other questions, otherwise, I just really want to thank you for giving up your time, Rowan. And again, kudos to you. The community thanks you. You've done so much for Madison. Even though, where do you hail from? We detected a bit of an accent.
I am not originally from Madison. I was born in England and have lived in a variety of places before I landed here. And if I was truly drinking, you might know by then. Yeah.
Does the accent slip out?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Maybe next time when it's someone else's presentation, I'll have an actual cocktail.
Okay, well, come on back. We'd love to have you. Thanks again, Rowan. Appreciate it. And thanks everyone for attending. And as Steve mentioned, lots going on with events coming up for AMA Madison next month. So we hope to see you all again real soon.
Thank you so much, everybody.